Welcome, Starseeds. This is Dharani Akashic, Activation Catalyst, Oracle, Soul Guide, and fellow Starseed host for Unleash Your Cosmic Power, a podcast exclusively for Starseeds on a mission. This is the podcast to help you to unleash your cosmic power. We are the star beings, lovers of freedom, lovers of knowledge, lovers of life, who came to the planet with the intention to help liberate humanity from the fear-based chains of limitation and enslavement. Get ready, my fellow Starseeds, to embark upon the extraordinary adventure of being a human in a body on Earth. Together, we will dive deep into the mysteries of the universe to help you to remember your cosmic origins, explore the vast realms of consciousness, and help awaken you to your multidimensionality. We will be encouraging you to take that guided action from your higher self to fulfill your divine purpose and unlock your cosmic potential as you gain the courage to face everything that stands in the way of anchoring your divine expression and embodying your highest self to create a life that mirrors your soul desires, inner fulfillment, and an abundance of prosperity, love, and joy, just the way that you were meant to.
So I wanted to start off the podcast by reading from one of my favorite teachers. Her name's Lisa Renee, and you probably have heard about her. And I wanted to start off by reading something of hers because I feel like even though I found her like a few years ago, a lot of what she speaks of, I had always known within my heart and within my soul. And so I found that it was really surprising that to have someone else actually verbalize the knowing, that inner knowing that I was already carrying within myself, and to have someone even expand on that and help me to understand it. And so this is part of the law of one. So when I first started speaking to God when I was a child, I guess, I didn't really think of God as an external thing. I didn't even think of people as being separate, really. What it felt like to me was connecting deeper to a source where everything is. It wasn't that I was separate and I was reconnecting. It wasn't that anyone else was not connected. Those concepts didn't even really exist to me. It was like my mom or whoever would ask a question about something, and I would just tap in or connect deeper, and I would just know. And it did feel like jumping a consciousness level. If you're familiar with doing similar things like that, it's almost like you go up a few floors or one floor. And I would just access the information, and I didn't have a judgment about it, but it was just connecting to God within myself, and at the same time just knowing, everything was felt internally. It wasn't that I was going outside of myself or connecting to something external. And it's in that sense, it's hard to describe how connecting to the Akashic Records is, because you can visualize yourself going up an elevator, which some teachers suggest, or you can visualize yourself connecting to something external, or even going out into the galaxy. But what's really happening is that you're going deeper within yourself. You're connecting to the source within you. And so when I found Lisa Renee, I think it was through a friend. It was probably I don't really know. It was just through one of my online friends, and I was just amazed. I was oh my gosh, I so know this, and she's speaking about it, and it just matched up with what I was experiencing or what I had been experiencing. But she has a very detailed way of describing things to where it can seem like almost too much information at once, especially if you're not ready or if you have no context for where it's coming from. And even for me, that when I felt really connected, some of the stuff, it took me a little while to really understand. And so I just wanted to read part of the Ascension Glossary that she has on her site. It's called ascensionglossary.com. And this is part of the Law of One, which I know that a lot of you have heard. And it's just because I want us to all be kind of on the same page about what I mean when I'm talking about Christ consciousness and when I'm talking about we are all one. Because I have a lot of people tell me that they're not into New Age ideas and New Age belief systems, and they're, not into witchcraft or whatever. And this is not what I'm doing, and this is not what I'm in support of. It's very different. So I wanted to start reading from there. So, the law of one is the comprehension that all things are made of intelligent energy and are part of the all one. The law of one contains the sacred sciences which explain the mechanics of Christ consciousness that comprise the natural laws that govern the universal creation. All one is the recognition that the eternal truth is eternal love, and that state of eternal love is the organic consciousness of infinite creator or God source. Eternal love consciousness embodied within a form is referred to as unity intelligence, and is simultaneously recognized as the inner light of Christos. Unity consciousness is at one with God, and this unity consciousness is that which ignites the inner light of Christos held within as an eternal flame in the sacred crystal heart. The inner light of Christos, when actualized into a manifest form, is the embodiment of an eternal God human that holds the title of a cosmic citizen and is therefore God sovereign free. When we practice expressing loving kindness, we build unity consciousness that is directly reflected as the true nature and holy image of God's love. The term Christos is a term that extends way beyond all meaning that is associated with this particular planetary consciousness, and it describes the state of eternal cosmic consciousness. And a lot of times you might hear people using this word Christ, Sophia, crystal, Christella, and all of these words within this context are interchangeable because we're really referring to the principles of consciousness that are part of the law of one, which are referring to the cosmic structure of creation as it was intended by the eternal God source, and it extends beyond just the human concepts of Jesus Christ. There are 12 astrological precessions in the universal scale of time, each with 144 personal Christos identities. Returning back to the 12th astrological precession, we return to the founder cosmic cube matrix to reclaim all of our identities throughout these time cycles. So Lisa Renee describes the all-seeing eye of God as a project where the divine mind blueprint of God is imprinted upon a geometric tesseract that is called the cosmic cube matrix. And if you don't know what a tesseract is, it's basically a 4-dimensional cube that helps you to visualize the concept of time in a 4-dimensional universe. And the interesting thing about this is that I've had so many dreams, even like before I found Lisa Renee, about the tesseract cube, and I didn't even know what it was. I kept seeing like a cube within a cube within a cube, and I was always in the dreams, I was always activating the inner cube. I was always pressing or protecting this cube matrix. And so when I found this through the website with Lisa Renee, I thought it was so interesting that she was referring to this thing that I had been seeing in my dreams for a really long time. Some of the most vivid dreams that I remember having is that I was at the end of an ascension cycle in a timeline in a world. I don't know which world, but it was definitely like a cataclysmic time. I was out in I think it was a different planet. It must have been a different planet. And so I've had all these dreams of being on different missions with different groups of souls and different people. And there was definitely a woman, which might have been Lisa Renee, and other younger beings part of the mission. And in this particular dream, and I've had many, in this particular one, there was a gray stone tesseract cube. So it was a gray structure. And I walked, so they stayed outside. It was like the end of war or something. The background was like gray sky, and it was kind of like red dirt earth. So I stepped onto this cube, and it was like imagine an outlined cube made out of silver gray stone, and somehow it's all held together, but it's just the outline of it in perfect geometrical line. So one giant cube, and inside of the giant cube is a stone table, and on the stone table is another cube. And so I went in there and I press on the cube, which it reminded me of those like Egyptian tombstones or something. And I press on the cube and it activates something for that planet. And I mean, it might have just been a representation of what we're all meant to do here. But I was really excited when I knew that Lisa Renee was part of this, because I've been having dreams about it. And I've had so many other dreams about activating different kinds of cubes. There's like the whole idea of this cube is that it controls time. It controls the timelines. And this is what a lot of negative forces have been after. And there are sacred objects that are projected between different beings who are the guardians and protectors of it, because they can never fall into the wrong hands, because as soon as they do, they will instantly, if the guardian even thinks about giving it up to any of the negative dark forces because it's tired of being persecuted and chased or whatever, it will instantly teleport to the next recipient of the codes that is able to hold it for that time. So it is always protected. And so I've had these dreams about the cube, and I'll explain more about it. So Lisa Renee says that the cosmic cube matrix is the shamanic being projected into the brains and bodies of the blue rays at this time, and those that have been called or that have been said to have the mark of the Lamb on their foreheads as created by the opening of the seal. And the times that I have meditated and gone really far, like as far out as I could, it definitely felt like I have seen this eye, and I knew that it was the eye of God. And so the imprint of this geometric tesseract is being referred to as the cosmic cube matrix of God's archetypal matrix of the 144,000, which are your individual identities. The cosmic cube holds the blueprint to God's laws by building the architecture of the city four square or the crystal cathedral. This represents the four planes of matter in the four quadrants of the universe. This also represents the four elemental bases of our raw material making up the planes of matter, such as air, fire, water, earth. These four elements make up the main chemical constituents of our DNA code and are being re-encrypted by the auroras through the crystal river. The city four square or crystal cathedral contains the blueprint of the solar Christ identity of the 144,000 archetypes of the sons and daughters of God. This new life foundation, which is a new grid for building base matter in the blueprint as designed by the 144,000, is necessary in order to focus the divine wholeness of God consciousness in the given dispensation of the Ascension. So the City Four Square and Crystal Cathedral is where the Crystal River flows and is represented as a golden city archetype that returns God's laws back to this creation. Its projection is to be held as embodied by the divine messengers, such as described in different prophecies, and those with the seal of the Lamb on their foreheads, containing the schematic of the cosmic cube 144,000, the 144 matrix. So ultimately, the tetrahedron structure forms the base of the geometric tesseract, which is the cosmic cube matrix of God's 144,000. And this is the architecture held by the Oraphim for the City Four Square or the Crystal Cathedral. So the Crystal Cathedral architecture, it's what is being used for building these golden cities that are based on the microcosm to the macrocosm reflection of the divine structure to house the body of God. And so it has been referred to as the City Four Square in different places, but it's basically the inner Christos diamond sun angelic human light body that is built by the spiritually dedicated being to house the liquid plasma living light of God. And so for the inner Christos to embody into matter, the inner dwelling must be cultivated to house our highest consciousness in order to exist in oneness with God. To experience our inner divinity, we must build the inner temple of our physical body to reflect the divine presence of the Crystal Cathedral, which is the body temple built for serving God and for serving the divine plan. This new architectural eternal life foundation is also being built in the universal macrocosm as the result of the indigo Blu-ray ascension wave brain activating through the eternal eye of God. This particular Blu-ray activation is being referred to by the Guardians as the Crystal Cathedral transmission from the Cosmic Cube Matrix. This holds the schematics for the blueprint design that contains the Crystal Cathedral architecture for building the inner dwelling for the Christos consciousness within the planetary body of the angelic human body here on Earth. So the founder, guardian, Oraphim are the keepers and the protectors of the city four square in its geometric tesseract design that is transmitted by the cosmic cube matrix. So these are the omniversal time code keepers that we are capable of interacting with and communicating with within this dimension of the Earth timelines during this ascension cycle. So if all of this sounds like some crazy talk, like what am I even saying? I'm basically saying that through my own meditation practice, before I even found Lisa Renee and any of these teachings, through meditation, I have gone out like super far out to like where, as far as I could, to where I didn't have an identity anymore, like through to the void, the void of creation. And you dissolve all that you are, and you dissolve all ideas and concepts of self. It's even beyond unifying light and dark or polarity. There's just pure energy. And somehow I had the consciousness to not only feel at one with everything, but also to feel the pleasure of complete emptiness and nothingness, the peacefulness of nothing being projected into existence, but being that crystal clear mirror of nothing compared to what it is like for our consciousness to come into this realm and think that it's existing as various types of beings. Like all of this is a projected illusion. And so I went beyond that, and I saw what would be, I guess, like the doorway to the next universe. And directly looking at me was what I perceived to be the eye of God.
So what happens when you have such an expansive experience is that I'm still aware. It's like it involves being so multidimensional that you're still aware of your body or wherever you're being, but it just holds less importance. You're also nothing and everything. And so there I was staring at the eye of God. And what I was thinking was how God's consciousness is being projected into this, is looking at this, I want to say almost like kaleidoscope. So I'm going to refer to this eye of God as the Christ consciousness, which is God's source that can also exist on all of the levels in all of the universes, that is at one with all, including the individualized personality that the human self believes itself to be. And looking at such a being, I was reminded of who I really am, which is a being that exists in a much larger universe, as a much larger, I guess that's how the human starts to perceive things that are beyond its own comprehension. We can understand the concepts of small and big and vast. So when I was looking at this eye, that's what I felt. It's like the beyond as all of the interconnected realms that exist in like spanning out like forever. And I sensed the power and the potential, but not experience this power that a human could say like, oh, I'm going to wield that power, or I'm going to use this power for something. It was like unlimited. It was huge, vast, conscious, cosmic. It was at one with everything that exists everywhere in this universe, outside of this universe. It was just amazing. So part of the reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of people think that this type of spirituality is like New Age, or it's just reverting back to like Christian things, and it's really neither. It's actually just, I would say it involves a lot more checking in with yourself and waking up out of this matrix, out of this polarity game in much deeper ways than anything New Age could really provide or tell you about. The whole thing with the New Age idea that a lot of people are finding is that
it sort of takes you down this rabbit hole of manifestation, and just it focuses a lot on manifesting desires. And so a lot of the times it's people that want to use their own willpower to affect to have some sort of effect in the external world outside of them. And a lot of times those desires that they're manifesting are more based off of the ego rather than the soul. And so when you create from a place of ego, it continues the cycles of creating more timeline loops, creating more karmic ties with people. So instead of taking you down a path of consciousness evolution and evolving your consciousness so that you can become, so that you can remember that you're an eternal soul and be part of the eternal timelines, what happens for a lot of these souls, if they get stuck in there for too long, is that they get taken down a false ascension timeline where they think, I mean, they might be progressing and they might be advancing to some degree to like the 4th and 5th, maybe even 6th, 7th dimensions. And they'll be having a lot more control over their external world. They'll be able to manifest a lot more things. But again, if it's just based off of the momentary desires, then that's definitely more New Age, because you're not checking in with your soul. And so then that's when you kind of have to differentiate between the soul desires and the ego desires. And so the ego, first of all, like if you remember from a few podcasts ago, I was talking about how I remember coming back, being like in an auditorium in a spaceship or, somewhere else. And there's this giant phase that was telling all the souls that were the starseed souls that were going to be incarnating here how to create an ego, because at certain levels, you just don't really have an ego. Like you just accept that everybody is one and everything is one. And so it doesn't occur to you to be anything other than the truth of who you are and to behave in accordance with that truth. And so when you come down here, they were telling us, and it looked like this giant green face, and he looked exactly like that face in the mirror from that movie Snow White. For little kids from Disney, and he looked just like that. And it was in this giant big auditorium. There's like red velvet seats, and he was like, yeah, so the first step in creating an ego is you forget everything that you know about who you really are, and then you allow other things to step in and tell you who you are, and you try those out, and then it sort of takes you down this whole path of questioning yourself and trying to discover who you are instead of just being in connection with your soul and just knowing. So the idea here is that the soul decided to come into this 3D realm to really explore what it would be like to translate God's energy and flow life force into this particular construct. Because again, God pretty much instructed all the souls to experience all that is, all that could be, all that has been created. And so this universe was created, and of course it's created, so we're going to go explore it, right? So the whole idea was that we were going to come in here and graduate and evolve consciousness from a place of forgetfulness to remember the truth of who we are, and to constantly remember who we are despite being in lower dimensional realms. And so what happened is that we got stuck at the 3D level because there was beings in the universe that did evolve at a faster rate. And these beings decided that they wanted to have that they wanted to break off from God's source and have more control over the planetary resources and the individual life force which is essentially energy that exists within those souls that are still choosing to remain in connection with God's source, even if they don't fully remember. And so those beings created various time loops and traps that would keep souls that are connected to God's source reincarnating and repeating similar karmic loops and patterns, and it would prevent them from fully ascending into the next levels, the way that the consciousness was meant to travel through all of the universes. Like, we weren't meant to be stuck in one place for a super long time. It was going to be this natural evolution and remembrance that was really, really beautiful. But because we got stuck at 3D and we got so stuck in this idea and concept, and obviously we were manipulated, into power plays and power games, and we were stuck here for so long. And these negative entities were essentially like cheating. Like it wasn't supposed to be like this. A lot of the souls that were here forgot their true connection with God's source, and they forgot their true identity. And so then they just believed that they were the personality, and they lost track of their actual soul's record and their soul identity and their actual mission, which is to return, to flow through the all that is, to flow through this universe and evolve and return and exit out and explore some more with God's source. And so as these souls some of them began to wake up and make it out of this universe, and the souls that didn't choose to come into this construct and incarnate, saw what was going on, and they saw that these negative entities decided to basically have a cheat code and cause all this chaos. And so these entities that were still in connection with God's source, that were part of the Christ consciousness, which is a consciousness that exists in all of the realms and all of the levels, in all of the dimensions, that can still have an identity, but is at the same time connected with the all, and knows that for sure, 100%, it is one with all. So this consciousness and beings, avatars of this consciousness, decided to come into this construct to try to help the souls that had been trapped here for so long to exit out of this matrix, to remember who they are. And so that's what is meant by like waking up, by helping to liberate other souls. That's what's meant by remembering your God source self, by freeing humanity, freeing all the species on all the star systems and all the universes from slavery, which is what the negative entities had created. And so they came in here with the mission of helping to reawaken the other souls. And they realized, that's where there's been this ongoing intergalactic war on consciousness, essentially, where one side of these negative entities, there's many different groups, but so they can range from like very, very evil to like not so evil, kind of neutral. And they all have different agendas. They all have played different roles in this enslavement, entrapment, predator mind type consciousness. They've played so many different consciousness traps, including, ideas of superiority, ideas of extreme polarity. And these are all games that the human personality decided to buy into, essentially, and create karmic ties with, so that they would keep looping and reincarnating within the same levels instead of graduating and evolving and exiting out of this matrix. And so even now, there's the whole idea of ascension into 5D, which to me, I'm surprised that people are still just focused on that, because yeah, of course, everybody wants their life to be better. Everybody wants to have access to all of the resources and, to be able to create what they desire in their life, to have freedom. But the thing is that the new consciousness trap is really to just believe that you're evolving out of the time matrix and moving into the realms of just creation, where you continue to create whatever you want. But in those realms, you're still trapped, because there's still controller beings that are playing those games with you. You're not evolving past the ego. You're still creating from those egoic desires instead of being of service to God's source. And when I say being of service to God's source, I don't mean like you're being of service to some external being that is dictating to you what to do, or that is telling you that there's specific things that you're allowed to do and other things are bad and therefore you shouldn't do them. What I'm referring to as being of service to God's source and being of service to a life is that when you are aware that you are at one with everything, you realize that this being that is your higher self, that is connected to higher and higher levels, all the way to God's source, what happens is that this being actually has your best interest at heart at all times. So that when you realize God's perfection is that since time is an illusion for us here, God has already created the most fulfilling, the most happy, the most magical timeline that you could ever want to experience, the most magical path. And you have several, like you have so many different probabilities of how to get there. And at each choice point, you can choose something else. And then that in itself opens up different pathways. And it's like you're constantly being rerouted. And this will happen at multiple levels throughout the universe and everywhere. So what happens here when you are in a body is that you do have certain things that are pre-contracted because you're living in such a low density realm. And there's karmic ties that tie a person to the planet. And so some things you're definitely like contracted to do while you're in a body, and you're going to meet specific people. Sometimes it's specific souls. Sometimes it's specific patterns. So you will experience meeting souls who carry the patterns that you're meant to interact with. So sometimes it's not even specifically about interacting with that soul. It's about you learning how to relate to those patterns that they are carrying, because your soul is learning something of itself that it has probably forgotten from interacting with the patterns that that person is carrying. And so that's why sometimes people manifest relationships with like the same person over and over again, even though it's like a different person, it's like the same pattern, because they're carrying the exact same pattern that you haven't learned to navigate, that you haven't reharmonized and brought back into neutral 0 point with the truth of your soul, with the truth of your being. And so that's what we're doing a lot when we are incarnated in bodies. And so when I'm talking about in service to God's source, I mean that the ego wants to, when you think of God as being separate from you, you think of God as being this external being that is telling you what to do. And so the natural impulse when something external and outside of you tells you to do something is to be rebellious and not do it. And so if you remember that movie Inception, how they would have to very secretively get into the minds of people and make them think that they came up with this idea. And that way they would do it with little resistance. And so the same thing is happening in humans right now. So if you have this external idea of a creator outside of you telling you that there's right and wrong, you're going to naturally want to do what's wrong, because that's just how humans are. You're just going to naturally be rebellious against something else controlling you, because inherently tied into that is the actual truth within your rebelliousness that free will is yours. It is your gift from Creator. And so what a lot of the negative beings have done on this planet is to try to control people through programs and implants and overlays and false memories and karmic ties, but specifically through things that have to do with fear. So they try to get people to only vibrate at a certain particular bandwidth. So that's usually survival state, which is, it ties usually to like your lower 3 chakras. So like the root, the sacral, and the solar plexus, 3D. And so that is the frequency bandwidth leash that is on most people most of the time. And they can very easily control you when you stay within those bandwidths and when you don't rise up even to like there's like the lower heart where you have like relationships with people. But then there's a higher heart where you have access to like being able to feel unconditional love for all beings. And then you connect to a wider network of expansion. So even that, and it's not that you're not connected to the other higher chakras, it's that most people are being controlled through the lower 3, and that is by the design of the negative ET agenda and the controllers of this matrix. And so that's why it's so important for you to remember that God is really inside of you, because then you'll remember that the inner guidance that you have is actually coming from you, from the most evolved version of you, the one that has gone so far beyond this realm and is still within you, is still united with you and everyone at the same time. But it is such an intelligent force that it has mapped out exactly what the best outcome is. It's almost like right now, imagine that you came into this world, or you came to a carnival, okay? And in this carnival, you are going to figure out what your favorite flavors are or what your favorite colors are. And so maybe at the beginning, let's say that you forgot that you've done this before. You don't know what they are. And you're like, oh my gosh, I wonder what all the colors are going to be and what are all the flavors going to be. And at the same time, being an expanded being, like there's the other version of me that has already gone through all of this and that knows I know what all of the flavors are, what all of the possibilities are, and I know what your favorite flavor is, and I know how you can have the most magical experience within this carnival. So listen to me, right? And so like that's your inner guidance system, and that's God, or your higher self connected to God. And so when you rebel against this you that is really trying to show you what the best thing is for you, because it's already done it, because it is you on an expanded level. It's you loving yourself so much that you would go back in time and communicate what is best for you. You know, it's like if you could go back in time right now and warn your like 10-year-old self, or your 15-year-old self, or your 20-year-old self about who's going to be cheating on you, or like, you know, don't go with that person, or like, don't have that lover, or avoid this job, or avoid this situation. You totally would, because you love yourself. So now imagine that on an expanded level where like you are such a huge being that you love everyone, and you're so connected that you're basically God. And you, of course that you're going to go back and try to guide all of your children, and you're going to try to guide all of these alternate yous into the best, most harmonious outcome, because you've seen it all, because you know it all. And of course, if they believe that you are separate from them, then they're probably going to do the rebellious thing and not listen to you. So that's us here at the human level. A lot of times we will rebel against our own intuition. And so when I say that there are beings that just want control, these are beings that have purposely cut themselves off from themselves, from their larger aspects, from God's source, for one reason or another, and decided that it was more important to them to have more immediate control of the situation right now. And it's kind of like imagine that you have a little kid and the parent's like, okay, if you wait 5 minutes, I'm going to give you 5 candies, but right now you can have 2. If you have 2 right now, then you're not going to, you're going to miss out on the 5 candies later on. And so these impatient little children were just like, okay, I'm just going to eat all the candy right now. And then they know that God has 5 more candies, right? So they're going to do everything possible because they want more candy. They're going to try to steal the other kids' candy around them. And so they have purposely chosen to cut themselves off from God's source because they wanted all that candy right now. And they didn't want to have to wait, and they didn't want to do what God's source was asking them to do. They were choosing to cut themselves off more and more from God's source so that they could steal people's immediate candy and they could have it all right now. And so that's like a very simple way of me referring to the negative forces in the universe that have wanted control over humanity and over all of our DNA. So all of these forces, they have wanted control. And so now that they know that they know that they did wrong, and some of them are trying to come back to God's source, which is wonderful because God loves everybody. And some of them, there are specific souls that have incarnated here specifically to help rehabilitate these darker aspects of themselves back to the light, back to God. And that's really quite a brave mission to undertake because some of these forces are just so evil. So thank you so much if you're one of those souls. Like, wow, you're amazing. And then there's other souls who are here just to help the souls that are more ready to exit, to be of immediate service and like help them leave, while simultaneously maybe like banishing the more negative beings. And it's not like banishing; it's more like if okay. So a lot of things have happened on the planet, and there have been like multiple holes that have gotten ripped into the timelines and into all of these different dimensions where it wasn't supposed to be like that. And so you've had beings that were sucked into this planet that weren't even supposed to be on this planet, that were very unhappy, and they're causing havoc and chaos, and they're not even supposed to be here. So then you have other souls who incarnated specifically with that mission to help the planet. So we're helping the planet to close off these portals and send those beings back to where they belong. And so you could do this for like the tons of different beings. You could call them, some of them demonic. You could just say they're different beings that are not supposed to be here that we send back. But you can also refer to like a ghost that don't want to leave, and you help them to move on and you send them to where they're supposed to be, because it's not that things are evil. It's just that they're misunderstanding something. They're not like translating the energy of God properly. And so it's like something's out of tune here in this room. If you're really sensitive, it's almost like a bad smell. If you're an angelic being, you're like, oh, I smell something weird. Okay, that's an entity. That is, or if you're a musician, you'll be like, I hear something out of tune. There's an instrument that is out of tune that does not belong here. Let's move this instrument to where it belongs. Let's put it in like a different verse. Let's put it somewhere else in the overall song. It doesn't mean that they get annihilated or eradicated. It's just like they belong within a particular segment of the song. And so there's beings here that are guardians that are helping to facilitate this harmonization of all of the beings so that we can once again have a beautiful unity song that has been crafted by God's source being everyone and everything. God's source being of crystalline consciousness that exists everywhere at once, is at one with all, that can incarnate into individuality, maintain its sense of individuality, and at the same time be one with everything. And so we're reharmonizing that song. And so the main thing that I see with New Age and people who just want, well, first of all, what I'll say about the New Age thing, there is the trap of just helping people to manifest is amazing and it's wonderful. And I've definitely had my time where I manifested a lot of things, and it was a little creepy. It was like, whoa, so does that mean like everything is going to happen exactly how I say from now on? And it was a little strange for sure. And then I don't know what I started interacting with other people, and I think I redid some contracts, and then my level of interaction, because of the things that I was asking to manifest, they involved other souls. It wasn't just me saying like, give me the best love of my life. It was like, give me this specific person because I want them to be in my life forever. Like I remember at the time that I was really having an amazing manifestation role. It was the first time that I came to Kauai, and I was with like somebody that I loved a lot, and I thought we were like soulmates and stuff, and we weren't. I didn't know about astrology back then, but I do now, and I've looked at her charts. I'm like, if I had known about astrology, we would not have been together. But things happened as they should, as you know, fate intended for them. And at the time, we do have like some very, very good aspects and also some really bad aspects. So the really good aspects is what I was feeling at the time. And for a time, it did feel like heaven on earth. It was like absolute heaven. It was just joy. And because I was asking, and I was hoping to manifest, first of all, some of the things that I was trying to manifest were getting all of my family in Hawaii, which isn't like that many of them, but just to have my family together in Hawaii and for us to be happy here together. And there was just certain things that I was asking for that involved other people and other people's free will choices. And because I was asking about them while I was in these really high states of manifestation, it's like we agreed to do this on a soul level, but that meant that those people were going to have to burn off some karma to be able to get here, or to be able to do some of the things that I was asking for all of us to be able to enjoy together. And so when you manifest and you ask about other people specifically, you're trying to essentially renegotiate for them or with their higher self for something that they may not be ready for. And so what will happen is that in your timeline, probably you can manifest that, but there's going to be issues because they might have not wanted that specifically. And so now what you deal with is the manifestation that you wanted, or some version of it, plus the negative karma that person has to burn off, and all of the resistances and all of the hiccups and all of the road bumps that come along with that. And so now you're not just dealing with yourself in pure flowy manifestation in general, having God and allowing God and the universe to bring you exactly what you desire, even if it's in a different person, even if it's in a different place, in a different form. And that's why frequency is so important. But when you pray for specific people and you have these hiccups, it's because you prayed for that specifically. And there was some aspect of them that agreed, otherwise it wouldn't happen. But now you're also dealing with the darkness that they bring into the situation. It's like if you pray for that person, you're also praying for their darkness to come with you. And by darkness, I mean all of their blind spots, all of their karmic ties, all of their karmic bonds, which a lot of times, especially if you're in relationships, it involves the family and the extended family and their karmic information and their karmic loads. And so it can get really complicated. That's why it's best, if you are on a manifestation roll, to ask for things from a frequency level and allow the universe to deliver to you exactly what you want in the most flowing and beautiful manner. And again, you can do that at like the higher levels, like 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D is pretty pristine. And like when I say that I interact with different beings at different levels, what I mean is that I kind of like travel in my astral body. It's not like my physical body is going there. It's like my astral body travels. And so a lot of times when I've interacted with these beings, it's like my astral body traveling. And sometimes, and I mean, I can describe that in a different video, but what I'm saying is that you can help people to get on a really good manifestation roll. And at some point within that manifestation roll, you will come to realize that it gets a little boring, right? The game gets a little boring because you're manifesting all these things that you want and you're like, oh, I don't know that I really want to do this anymore. And then you start to sabotage yourself. And I see this so clearly with children. Like my son, like he got really good at walking. Once he learned how to walk, he was bored with it. He started tripping. He started running and like falling over things on purpose. Like I know he was doing it on purpose. And so you trip yourself up while you are manifesting because it gets a little boring and you want to spice it up. And that's okay. That's another level that you get to within your manifestation role. And so you can be stuck at that level of manifesting the things that you want for a very long time. And that's how these controller forces, they're still manipulating you. They're still taking your candy essentially, because every time that you are the longer that you stay here and the more karma that you accrue, the more the reincarnation that you're going to have to do, the more karmic ties that you end up having with other people that are already here. And so they're just prolonging your timeline here in this universe. And sure, some of you are going to have an amazing time and some of you are going to have like not such a great time. And they don't really care. They just want more souls to be here because they have more candy and they want the candy. And so that's what I mean by like, you can get stuck in that rabbit hole of just manifestation and manifesting, and it can be fun, but it's also a false ascension trap because you do ascend a little bit, but you don't ascend to the place of complete sovereignty and freedom. And there's many reasons and many plans because God does want to reclaim all of the souls in as much of a intact manner as possible. So so some of these souls might refuse to the very last bit, and then they might like turn to dust or something. But for the most part, God really wants to, help as many souls as possible to exit. And so that's why there's specialists that have been sent here to help infiltrate some of these dark forces. And they're working with multiple ET groups. And they have very difficult missions sometimes. Sometimes there's multiple beings using one body. And again, that can be really hard on the body. I do not recommend this if you're one of those souls that has a contract. It's usually called like an Indigo 3 contract where you reincarnate with really negative beings and they're all using one body and making different choices and karmic ties. And it can get really, really messy. I do not recommend it. I recommend that you rewrite that contract and with your higher self and with God and evict all of the souls that do not belong in that body. Usually you need help for this. And if you do, reach out to me and I'll help you with that. Or if you know of some other person, that's okay too. But so where you really want to get to is that you want to return to God's source. You want to exit this matrix because this game has been going on for a really long time. And really you want to go through all of the levels and you're not going to not go through all of the levels. It's not like we can just extract you at 3D. That's not how it works. You have to go through all of the levels to exit. So that means that we are speeding up the level, the intensity that whereas before it was taking a little bit longer, it's all getting sped up. Like the frequency is getting turned up so that people have to purge faster, so that people have to burn off karmic ties faster. And so people experience this as, we'll say like this acceleration as more trauma, as more crazy events happening, more deaths are going on around them with people that are, just ready to exit and move on into the next incarnation. But, so everything gets more intense with people. And again, if you tie this to the planetary alignments and to the sun, that's one way to do it. Like the sun, like the earth and the sun, they're already there. They're like, we got this. We're moving along. You're coming or not, And so that's what's going on. And all I'm really saying is do not get stuck at the level of manifesting. You want to go beyond that. Yes, manifest as much as possible and as much as you can and realize that at some point, those are the hiccups you're going to run into having to deal. You're going to manifest some people into your life where you have to deal with their darkness and it's going to get attached to you. And then you're probably going to form some sort of karmic tie where like it is going to bring you down. And you're going to have to learn how to maneuver that because that's happened to me. And I'm still dealing with a lot of that. But for the most part, I feel like I always know who I am. And even if I fall down sometimes, like I'm always going to get back up, and I'm not going to give up, because that's not the kind of soul that I am. And I'm here for you. And I'm here with my entire soul team and my soul family. And I so appreciate all of you guys. But I'm just saying, like, if you're just getting stuck in manifestation, know that there's higher realms for you to go to. And so what happens a lot of times is that some of these souls, it can be really painful, and it depends on what your individual soul contract is. But you can get up to like 10D and 11D. And 11D, 11 to 12, because the original fall and the creation of this false matrix occurred around I think it's like 11.46. It's almost around 11.5D. So the infiltrations can go really, really high up with the negative ET, negative agenda, manipulation, all of that. And so the further that your consciousness can go up, the more that you start to reclaim of yourself, just know that there will be more purification for you to do. And you might not be able to tell how deeply you're infiltrated until you get to the 11th gate, until you get to the 12th gate. And then you'll have God or your guide say, hey, you're infiltrated, let me clear you. Because that's definitely what happened to me. Like, I recently did this meditation where I was opening the 10th gate, and it was fine. It was like in Lyra and Vega, and it was great. Then I went to the 11th gate, and I have done this so many times, but if I do pick up other people's energy, or if I have someone else in my field that's not supposed to be there, the guides will tell me. So this time when I went to the door to open the planetary gate, I was told by an emerald green eye, so an emerald being representing the emerald guardians and the emerald father, that I was being infiltrated. And immediately I was like, just clear me. And I dropped it all. I dropped all attachment, because that is, I'm not going to forget what my true soul purpose and soul mission is. And so I was cleared, and then I was able to open the door and then go into the 11th gate. And then when I opened up the 12th gate, I found some other awesome friends there. But I'm just saying, like, you can have infiltrations at all of these different levels. And the thing is that, like, these beings want to co-create and infiltrate other Christic beings and other angelic souls that have been working on their DNA for a long time. And they want to get psychically attached to you or bonded to you, because they don't know how to do the work, or they don't want to do their own inner work. But you're not going to be able to carry them across the gate. And like, that's something that they might think, like, you can only carry them so far. And so that's why when you're being pushed to grow, and when you're being pushed to accelerate your own spiritual evolution and go beyond all of the gates, you want to do that as quickly as possible, so that you know where you're being infiltrated. And while you're in a body, so you could go to the 11th gate, you could even probably go, like, I don't know, to the edges of the universe, and you might still have a human body here, and that's okay. You're just going to keep going through the cycles. And you know that whole saying, like, chop wood, carry water after enlightenment. Well, you'll probably have to do that until really you're done here. And honestly, if you're presented with the opportunity to leave, you probably won't take it, because most people won't. We have too many attachments. But I'm not speaking for everybody, but I just know from experience that the times that I've been offered like an exit, I'm like, oh, I think I still have stuff to do. So just be aware of that. And then the other thing that I wanted to tell you really quick, because I know this podcast is running a bit long, is that you do need to activate your Christic light body architecture, because this is the architecture that is actually around your body when you ascend. It's like the ascension pathway up. So you know how, like, when you get really, like, Bible thumping people and they're like, Christ is the way. Okay, so there is a way, there is a ladder, and it is through Christic architecture. But it's not like Christ, like how they say in the Bible. It's like the crystalline architecture of your light body. And I can explain this more in different levels, and there's so many other teachers out there. Lisa Renee is a really good resource. But you're going to have to activate your crystalline light body, and you're going to have to build it up with the 12 tree grid. And you're going to have to fuel up all of those centers and connect your crystalline light body to the earth grids, to the sun, to all of the planetary gates before you can really exit. And you're going to be learning so much, and it's actually really fun and exciting. But you do have to activate that so that you can go through the 13th gate, through the 14th, through the 15th, through the 16th, and then up into the next levels of the universe. And you might have to do that several times, and it's like a meditation practice that you can continue. But that is the structure that you need. So in a sense, like, Christ is the way, Christ is the pathway for you, for your ascension out of this planet, and for your actual reunification of becoming a God, sovereign, free being that is at one with the Christ consciousness of being one with everything and one with God. And so that is something that you want to be focusing on. If you don't know, definitely reach out to someone that can help you with it. But that's something that I noticed with certain people. Like sometimes when I look at them, they don't have the architecture active. And so they will be able to advance up to certain dimensional levels, but not beyond that. And sometimes this is due to the fact that at some point, because remember, this is a fallen matrix, and a lot of us are angelic souls with hybrid DNA that have come down to help others specifically, but we had to really understand what we were getting ourselves into. So a lot of times we incarnated into these crazy situations so that we could get ourselves out and show others how to do it. And so what I see a lot of times with people is that even really advanced people and advanced spiritual teachers is that they have some of the architecture, but it's not totally active, or they are missing pieces because at some point when they incarnated in this or in a different lifetime, they made some sort of trade with the negative ETs or different beings. And you have to go into your own Akashic records or get somebody to help you with this so that you can fully understand what the trade-off was and why you made that choice to trade off parts of your soul for power or parts of anything. And this is not about like finger pointing or saying that you did something bad and like, you know, you're a bad being. No, like we've all done something that was detrimental for us at some point. We were all learning in this crazy carnival, right? So you just have to go back and understand why you made those choices and recall those pieces of yourself back, because most likely, I will tell you what they're doing with them. They are using those pieces of your soul to fuel some sort of negative alien machine, some type of alien grid. And in exchange, you usually get power at some of the lower dimensional levels. Or you get, it's kind of like making an investment, right? Like now you're an investor in this bank. And that's like the negative ET alien agenda. Okay, so it's like, give us some of your soul pieces and we'll give you some of whatever we produce with this. Even though it's like tainted with darkness, like a lot of times the souls that are missing and fractured part of their Christic architecture is because they've given away their soul pieces in specific lifetimes to help fuel these dark grids, to allow some of their DNA to be cloned and copied and used to fuel this false dark AI agenda. And so you have to go back and reclaim all of those pieces in full loving awareness with your higher self and with God, and in full reclamation of remembering that you are God's holy child. And it's actually a really beautiful journey, and I'm really excited for all of us. But if you have any questions about this, please don't hesitate to send me a message. Usually I will respond to people more on Instagram, but you can also try Facebook. I don't check my emails that much. I just have emails because it's required for most platforms, but I have so many emails. So try not to email me. Instead, send me a message and I'll try to get to it as soon as I can if you have more questions about this. But there's so many resources out there, and I would say like there's hope for everyone, and we're all doing this together. And yes, it's hard. What they're doing right now that I will say is that they are working with, they know that like the dark grids are crumbling, and there's so many people who are awakening right now that they are doing the most that they can with what they have, which is that they are trying to extract the most energy out of the beings that they do have in their control. And they are trying to push the negative effects of the negative grids that they do have around the planet, which are being dismantled right now as more people reclaim their soul pieces back. Like those grids start to lose power, even if you're not consciously aware of where those exact grids are. If you just reclaim your soul pieces back and you say, no, I am God, I'm sovereign, I'm free, I'm one with the Christ consciousness, then you're claiming, you're taking fuel away from those dark grids. And the same thing happens when you actually buy into some of the dark teachings, or you follow a dark teacher that's going to hook you into a negative dark grid. And this is not for like fear mongering. It's just be really aware of what teachers are doing. Like I remember a while ago, I went to this meditation class, and the woman there, she said that she was going to help you to manifest something. I think that's what she said. So everyone was happy, blah, blah, blah. And then everybody laid down, and I don't remember exactly what happened because this was a little while ago, but I remember being really uncomfortable, and I felt uncomfortable this lady, there was just something about her, but she had been a priestess in many lifetimes, and I could clearly see that. So what I mean is, like, these people aren't like outright evil, and these people might not be aware completely that they're doing something that's not totally ethical. But so I was in her meditation class, and it was more like a dinner party meditation. And she said she was going to she said, just like, try to sing or something. I think we all sung some mantra together. And then she called in some energy beings, and I thought, well, I can see things. So I saw them come in, and they all took energy from all of the people that were there, spiraled it up into the vortex, and fed it to her. And they fed it to this being that was working through her, and then that being gave her some of that energy. And then they were also helping some of the people to manifest specific things. But it was dark because they basically took the energy from all of the people and then gave them back like a tiny little crumb of it. And so that's what a lot of these false ascension teachers will do, whether they know it fully or not. They're taking people's energy, or they are plugging them into things that are not being run organically, or that are not being run with pure intentions of being life-serving and serving to all beings and serving to God's source in accordance and harmony with God's laws. And so when you create things that don't have like those specific rules, that aren't following that, they're probably getting their energy source from some artificial means that is probably sucking the life force out of other sentient beings that don't really want their life force getting sucked out. And so you just have to be really aware of who you're listening to and how it's making you feel. If you are psychically aware, you'll be able to tell one way or another, and you can also ask your guides for help with this. But yeah, I've seen that with a lot of different teachers, where they literally do use your life force energy, and they take much more than they give you back for that tiny little bit of manifestation. And not all of them are dark. Some of them are very Christic and aligned beings, and some of them are undercover, and they are working with dark forces in a very secretive ways, and probably helping to reclaim specific soul aspects of themselves back. And I'm fully, like, in awe of you. That's amazing, because like I said, some of those beings are some of the most evil beings that can exist in the universe. Like, I mean, they've been responsible for so much death and suffering. So you're like a really amazing and brave soul if you are doing that. Just be really careful and trust God's source and follow your guidance, because you are being guided, especially if you are one of them, one of these souls that I'm talking about. But yeah, just have the highest discernment possible. Stay aware, stay awake. I did mean to end this with some sort of meditation. So I'll see if I can record that. And if I do record it before the end, then I'll add it to the last bit of this. And otherwise, I think I'll just make a different podcast, and I'll talk to you soon. Just to recap real quick. So I was talking about the main differences between like New Age stuff, between people who just believe in the Bible. Oh, so that's the other thing. Yeah. So like the reason why I don't resonate with a lot of like Bible teachings is because people tell you to not listen to yourself and just listen to what somebody else wrote down. And I always want to encourage you to check with yourself, with your heart, because your heart has a truth meter that is coming from God directly that will never lie to you. And so if something feels off, it probably is, and you need to pay attention to that. And when you're reading the Bible, like, yes, there's a lot of different truths in there, but there's also other people's energies and other people who've written it. And it goes for any sacred text, because all of the religions have been infiltrated. Even when you meet like godlike beings, like Shiva or Vishnu or whoever, they are also, they have a lot of power, but you want to be sure that you are always proclaiming yourself as a child of God, and that you are free and that you are sovereign. Because honestly, like, you can be thankful for them, but just make sure they're not stealing your energy or trying to use your body for weird things. Another thing I'll say about that is that a while ago, so I always resonated with the energy of Freya, like the goddess Freya, and I know a lot of other people who resonate with her energy as well. And I met her, and she's actually one of those beings whose family was not supposed to be here. And she had like green skin and red hair, and she's like a giantess, and she had one eye. And so what happened is, like, when the portals were ripped open, her and her people were like shocked, and they like came out of this like portal that had just been ripped, like raging, like what is going on, right? So they were just like murdering, and it's like war, and they're very powerful beings and warriors. And so what happened is a lot of times they also did take some of Sophia's jewels and powers. And what Freya did, and I've always felt really connected and close to her. So she's always been like a freedom goddess, right? Or that's what she represents for a lot of people. She was very kind, and I don't know exactly how we started connecting, but I think I connected through her astrologically because she's conjunct my North Node. And so I connected with her through that, and I was helping her to help her people back in through that wormhole, through that portal, and we were sealing it up. But we were patiently waiting for more of her kind to go through the portal, and she was waiting outside of it. And while we were waiting outside of it together, she gave me Sophia's jewels back to give to my mother. And, because we are her daughters, and it was like this beautiful harmonious healing was occurring between the bloodlines, and she knew that they weren't hers to keep. And so that's how she was able to do a lot of her magic and a lot of the things that you hear about. It's the soul codes of other beings that have existed here that were very powerful, that were eradicated by other beings who weren't even supposed to be here. Like the timelines were so messed up with Atlantis, and with things getting like torn open in various timelines, with people messing around with technology in a very bad way. And so we harmonized that, and I have so much love for her. And it was almost like we had this like ritual of like forgiveness, and I was just witnessing her people going back into the vortex where they were meant to go. And she gave me back the jewels, and it was just like a very loving and beautiful moment. And I don't think she's on the planet anymore, not really. And so she had agreed to, just go back to where they belonged. And it's such a peaceful moment when you can actually help a being to reconnect to their home planet or their home dimension or their home world, and help them to get back to exactly where they belong. It's like, yay, I get to go home now. Thank God. And that's the type of energy that it was. So a lot of us are doing this all around. And what else was I going to say? I think that's it for now. I should probably just include more of this in a different podcast. But thank you for tuning in. I hope that this was helpful. I hope I clarified what, that you should always check in with yourself, the difference between just 5D and new age stuff, and like actually ascending beyond that. And hopefully you now have a better idea of what you need to do in order to be able to fully ascend beyond like 5, 6, 7D, activate your Christic light body and architecture. And hopefully you understand that if things are getting more intense now, it's because we are trying to help you to ascend faster, which means burning off karma faster, which means that like the planet is already doing it. The grids are stabilized into like a new coordinate system, and the negativity forces are trying to work as hard as they can to keep people stuck in particular bandwidths of vibration, and that is the bandwidth leash that we are all trying to break free of. And just know that things are intense, but you have all of the tools to be able to navigate them. Reach out for help if you need it, and always remember to run everything by your higher self, which is connected directly with God, or you can talk to God directly through your heart and be guided out of this fallen matrix system and out of suffering. And I'll just end with this quote that I really like, and I think it was said by Sri Yukteswar, who is Yogananda's guru. And he said, the moment when you find God is the death of all sorrows. And I just love that so much, because so many people are trying to find God just to avoid sorrow. But truly we're finding God because it's our destiny to be at one with the highest source of all, to be united in Christ consciousness, and to exit out of this matrix and take all of our loved ones and soul family with us, and continue our joyful evolution with our Christed family in other universes. And isn't that so exciting? I'm really excited. So, okay, I'll talk to you soon. I hope you have a great 2 weeks or however long. I'll try to record another podcast sooner. But take care. I love you. And I'm sending you lots of good vibes and love and aloha.
Thank you so much for joining me on this voyage into the depths of cosmic consciousness. I'm truly grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in and embarked on this journey with me. I want to extend a heartfelt invitation for you to visit my website, dharaniakashic.com, and explore a wealth of resources designed to help support you in your starseed awakening. Please follow and connect with me on Instagram and Facebook and send me any questions that you have so I can answer them on the podcast. As a token of my appreciation, I invite you to download a complimentary meditation that will help guide you in connecting with your starseed soul origin family. It's a powerful tool that can help deepen your understanding and strengthen your cosmic bonds, because I know how crucial it is for us to have that connection here on Earth. Remember, fellow starseeds, you are not alone. Embrace this cosmic connection and continue to nurture the profound awakening from within. Together, let us ignite that spark of higher consciousness and create ripples of profound transformation in our lives and the world around us. So until our paths cross again, may the stars illuminate your path and may your journey be filled with love, light, and boundless cosmic wisdom. Thank you for joining me. I'm sending you lots of love and cosmic proportion hugs from your star family and the council.